to talk to you about a topic that I realize I actually haven't talked to you about enough. Vice President Kamala Harris. I want to talk about whether she's actually gotten a fair shake as the first black and female vice president. Today, the vice president unveiled a $1.5 billion program which aims to combat the shortage of aspiring healthcare professionals by giving them financial support. Those students would in turn commit to serving in medically underserved communities. The effort has become an urgent need in the wake of COVID. Today, she spoke about the administration's collective commitment to assist more than 22,000 healthcare professionals, along with the towns and cities who need them. The effort is a follow-up to recommendations by the COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force. Here's some of what she had to say earlier.
The president and I asked members of our task force to advise us, not just on COVID-19 disparities, but on how we get at the root of all the disparities in the healthcare system that we face. And earlier this month, in their final report, the task force laid out clear priorities for our administration and for our nation. Here's but one of those priorities. Our nation must invest in a healthcare workforce that looks like America and provide access to equitable healthcare for all Americans. So today I am proud to announce, thanks to our American Rescue Plan, we will invest $1.5 billion to help us do just that. With these funds, we will invest in our National Health Service Corps and our Nurse Corps. Together, these healthcare professionals serve more than 23 million patients in our nation. We will also invest in our substance use disorder treatment and recovery program. Our administration's goal here is to address the urgent shortage of doctors, nurses, and behavioral health providers in both urban and rural areas. Through scholarships and loan repayment, we will support over 22,000 providers. 22,000 providers, a record number of skilled professionals committed to serving in underserved communities. And these professionals will look like America and be better prepared to provide equitable care to America. In addition, in the days ahead, it is our hope and intention and expectation that Congress will build on this work by passing our Build Back Better Act.
So this is actually a really big deal. For those of you who don't follow all of the various core programs that the United States has, you might be familiar with Peace Corps, perhaps, because that's one of the volunteer programs where young people generally, but anybody, can go and volunteer to work abroad and are paid to do that. There's also a program called AmeriCorps, where young people can go and sign up to do good work in communities and be paid by the federal government to do that for a couple of years as a way to build out community. And this program that she is announcing and talking about investing in right now with almost $2 billion is a healthcare workers corps, essentially, to put more people out into the field to help all of the communities right now that we know we don't have enough professionals to serve. The thing about COVID is that COVID exacerbated, as the vice president just said, all of the health disparities that already existed. And so much of them have to do with a gap in care. So when you had so many people trying to go to the hospital and the emergency rooms, the system got really taxed. And I think it's a really huge deal, and I'm bringing this up for a reason. It's a huge deal that the administration is going to invest tremendously, not only in just put some workers out there, but actually investing in people from the communities that they're going to serve in so that they reflect the diversity of America. That's what true equity really is, and that's a way that the federal government can bridge gaps that exist. I'm talking about that because one of the things that has come up constantly for me about the service of this vice president is that she's working on a whole lot of stuff that's an actual big deal that's going to have major impact for all of us in this country that we don't actually hear enough about, and certainly, don't hear enough to really understand it and chew on the significance of it. This is just one of many efforts. And in fact, President Biden has tasked Harris with heading up some of the most ambitious undertakings in this administration. She's taking the lead on voting rights. And we all know that that's a heavy lift. Almost every night, we're here talking about the full-on war on our right to vote in states all over this country. There's gerrymandering and all sorts of lawsuits on both sides and just restricting access to the ballot. It's really all a hot mess. And as the New York Times points out, Harris very much has her work cut out for her. And the second in command is also repping an issue that this country has never actually been able to effectively, I would say, define or solve, and that is immigration. Back in July, she revealed her plan to get to the, quote, root causes of migration, particularly in Central America. The complexities of this issue just can't be understated. When Biden was vice president, by the way, he was actually tasked with the very same challenge and didn't really solve it at all. Even with all those big ticket items to tackle, Kamala Harris has really gotten little grace when it comes to what's on her to-do list and what she's actually accomplished. Instead, the media is harping on her quote-unquote chaotic office and her communications chief leaving. Oh, and then the op-eds remind us of how old Biden is, while also then pointing out how unpopular both he and Harris are. I got to tell you, I wonder to myself, what is all this hateration in the press about? Because like I said, you have a vice president where, in my humble opinion, I'm just not sure that she's going to even, the tasks that have given to her, I'm not sure that she's going to even really be able to make significant inroads in, not because she's not brilliant and capable and has been a public servant for, so much time that she knows these issues like the back of her hand. It's because the magnitude of them is so outrageous that we haven't been able to solve one of these issues, voting rights or immigration or health equity, in generations. These are perpetual structural issues defined by discrimination and a whole lot of other isms that have literally been in some cases a stain on this country, but they have just, taken generations of people to try to figure out how we're going to move forward and have perplexed some really brilliant people. And now, suddenly, Kamala Harris, the vice president, has all of these things on her plate at one time and is expected to sort through the root causes of migration. As if, tomorrow her staff is going to wake up and be like, oh yeah, people are poor and they have, war going on. And by the way, they're natural disasters. And so, yep, that's why they're coming here and we can just figure out how to fix all that, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Each thing that she is charged with certainly could be career defining for anybody who is able to come up with some solution just to move the needle a little bit, let alone solve all these crises. And I often wonder, has she been set up to fail by being charged with these big, ambitious projects? Or, as the pundits and the op-ed writers like to, constantly try to pick at her about communication strategy in her office, or has she just not figured out how to brand herself as a shero who is wearing a cape and caping hard for all of these big issues that so many people pontificate about, but haven't quite figured out what to do about? I got to tell you, if I was working in the vice president's office advising on communication strategy right now, I would own each and every one of the things that she has on her back and the work that she is doing to make meaning in the lives of millions of people. And I would claim, not necessarily victory, because we ain't won yet, but I would absolutely claim the mantle of hero and the Cape Crusader who is doing what she can to figure out how to support migrants, how to deal with the complicated immigration issue in this country, who is trying to figure out how to move us forward on voting rights. And by the way, she was one of the authors in the Senate who worked on H.R. 1, that was pretty much her bill of putting together this big master plan, huge omnibus package to shore up our democracy. Kamala Harris was knee deep in that. And if I were her, I would be doing a little bit more walking around with some swag and popping my collar and owning the abundance of things that she has taken on. And I know that everybody is waiting to see what is going to happen with President Biden. Is he going to run again for another term? What does it even mean to the vice president that everyone has decided is just simply waiting in the wings as opposed to doing all of the work that she's doing with and in the West Wing? People want to talk about the politics of this, but I got to tell you that if Vice President Harris can really own her brand as a deal maker and a doer and a thinker and a shaper of foundational policy for generations to come, I think that she's politically going to be all right. So my hope is that to her team, as it, ebbs and flows, and one more insider scoop thing I'm going to tell y'all, look, these jobs in the administration are hard. People don't have them for lifetimes. Her communications director, Ashley Etienne, who has been around the block for some time, worked in the Obama administration, was an advisor to Speaker Pelosi, and said when she took this job, y'all, I'm probably only going to be here a year. So she is exiting. I wouldn't add a whole lot of rhetoric to that and try to create something salacious and a scandal, because that's what they want us to do. They want black women to have some kind of real housewives, back and forth and nastiness. I wouldn't attribute any of that to change. And in the midst of this change right now, I would hope that people are thinking about how we brand the first black woman who has ever been Vice President of the United States. And interestingly enough, last week also is the first black woman who was the acting president of the United States, because there was those, few minutes there when Biden had to have a procedure and went under, and so she was in charge. But that's a really big deal, and we're not talking about the big deals. We're not talking about the big deals. And that's why I wanted to spend some time talking about those big deals with you this evening. Because as a black woman who has been in, very tiny positions of first, but in leadership positions nonetheless, it is demoralizing when you are hustling and doing what you can on behalf of the people, and the people don't even get wind of it and don't even know. And I know that it is difficult sometimes for America to allow a black woman to pop her collar and to shine and to own who she is and the boss that she is in the world. I would tell Vice President Harris, forget all those stereotypes and those tropes. Do you, girl? Because we miss the prosecutor who was sitting in the Senate taking people to task in committee during those hearings. We want you to be our Cape Crusader. That's what we love so much about you. And we need that from you right now. So as this transition happens, we're going to continue to follow all the new staff coming in and out, and we're going to continue to see how the brand evolves. And I am going to own doing a better job at acknowledging and highlighting all of the policy work that's happening in and out of and around Washington, and certainly that includes the things that are coming out of the vice president's office. So y'all hold me to that. I'll be back after this break. We're going to talk about some more fun stuff.